Yes, thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. I rise to take note of the Defence Minister's statement about the deplorable comments that he made last night. They're deplorable because these comments not only show contempt for the Australian Submarine Corporation, and it's not just some faceless entity, and not just for the management of the ASC, but these comments denigrate every member of the skilled workforce employed there. It also shows contempt for South Australia's proud history of skilled manufacturing. And what have we heard from the Defence Minister in his statement about these comments? Have we heard the word sorry? Have we heard that simple 5-letter word that indicates real remorse? No, we have heard a justification, an explanation, an excuse for why this was, to quote the Attorney-General, a slip of the tongue. We've heard that it was a rhetorical flourish. We've heard that the minister regrets any offence that may have been caused, but we have not heard the unreserved apology that Senator Abetz, his own colleague, would require as the standard in his own speech today. So let me ask, has offence been caused by these comments? And there's no doubt that, yes, there has been offence because they actually undermine the sense of worth of skilled workers in this corporation in South Australia. A news report quoted one of those workers today, pipe fitter Andrew Daniels, and I'd like to quote because this actually goes to the heart of what these sorts of intemperate, foolish and derogatory comments do when they are heard by the people who are affected by them. And I'll quote Mr Daniels. He said, "We're being trashed. When I go home to my family and this guy is telling me I'm useless, I don't feel useless." And that's pretty gutting to 3,000 workers in South Australia and Western Australia. It's not a great feeling to have your Defence Minister. You're out there doing your best job for the country, and he's trashing you.
Order.
Senator Betts has tried to minimise—
Senator Wright, resume your seat. Senator Moore.
It's a point of order. The interjections across the chamber by Senator O'Sullivan. I'm unable to follow the argument being put forward by Senator Wright.
Thank you, Senator Moore. The interjector has been particularly vociferous today, so it would be helpful if you desisted. Senator Wright.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy Chair. Senator Abetz has tried to minimise these comments. He's tried to explain that they came about because of frustration at the Labor government legacy. But that's not what the Defence Minister said in his comments. What he said in his comments clearly denigrated the Australian Submarine Corporation and their workforce, pure and simple. And unfortunately, today he hasn't been big enough to say sorry. And the sad truth is that this statement comes after a series of statements from the minister, not just undermining the Australian Submarine Corporation, but cumulatively undermining and casting doubt on Australia's naval capability generally. That's not what we should be expecting from a Defence Minister for Australia. The submarine project is the largest procurement in Australian history. For that reason alone, it must be done with transparency and integrity. It must be done with a competitive, transparent, open process that examines both value and cost, but of course also fitness for purpose, because these are vessels that we will be relying upon for our ultimate defence. Before the election, we had this same Defence Minister stand in Adelaide and commit to the build of the 12 submarines in South Australia. Before that, we had the previous government's white paper stating the future submarines will be assembled in South Australia. Minister Johnston, on the 8th of May last year, then opposition spokesperson on defence, accepted this commitment and stated that the coalition will deliver the White Paper's commitment. What he said, and I'll quote, so it's very, very clearly on the record: "The coalition today is committed to building 12 new submarines here in Adelaide. We will get the task done. And it is a really important task, not just for the Navy but for the nation." They were fine words, but it seems they have amounted to nothing. And then again, just to make sure that South Australians were in no doubt about what the government's commitment was, the Coalition Defence Policy a week before the election reiterated the commitment. Quotes, "We will ensure that work on the replacement of the current submarine fleet occurs in South Australia." There is clearly now an agenda, because we have the Defence Minister telling us that there has been no decision about the submarines. Of course there's a lot of speculation. Of course there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that suggests that there has been a decision that the submarines will be built in Japan. But we have the Defence Minister telling us that there is no decision yet about the submarines. There's clearly no decision that they will be built in South Australia in breach of that election commitment. But there is clearly not an agenda to ensure that we can have these submarines made in Australia. And so we have the betrayal of a promise made to South Australians before the federal election. What confidence, indeed, can we have that this Abbott government cares at all for South Australian jobs, coming as this does on the back of other decisions which have undermined the South Australian employment market? We've had this government presiding over the demise of vehicle manufacturing in South Australia. We've had now cuts to ABC jobs, which will severely affect the ABC and employment in South Australia, even though we still have Senator Abetz maintaining some kind of ludicrous fiction that there have been no jobs lost as a result of the cuts to the ABC. And now we have the Defence Minister, who has not been big enough to use that word sorry, who has not resiled from the remarks that he's made fully. The ultimate question then is how Australians can trust the Defence Minister to run the procurement process in a truly transparent and open way. The evidence is that he is not competent to run this process transparently. And the ultimate question must be then how Australians can trust this minister to oversee the defence of this country.
Thanks.